Welcome to THV 11 News at noon. I'm Hayden Balgavy. Here are some of the top stories we are following for you today. As we get closer to Election Day, Arkansans are checking the polls, a closer look at what goes into those numbers and how reliable they really are. Plus, unrest growing after the death of a woman following her detention in Iran. We'll check in with world leaders and how they're responding. And with inflation impacting prices of just about everything, how some people are trying to save money as their utility bills continue to climb. But first, meteorologist Kraus Ortiz is with us this afternoon. Kraus, we were hanging out last week on the morning show, and it was like talking about 100 degrees, and it's upper 90s on the weekend.
Yeah, just a few days ago, we were in the 90s. Last week, talk about 100-degree temperatures before the first day of fall.
This week, however,
is a nice change.
I'm so
the
happy.
Change that we deserve as well.
Yes.
And speaking of, those utilities, we could probably give them a break because it's not nearly as hot as it can be. A few days ago, this would have been probably almost near 90 degrees at this time, but we just reached 80 degrees. Lots of sunshine, a light breeze out of the north and east, and dew points in the 40s. And when we say dew points in the 40s, comparing that to dew points to say in the 60s and 70s, those normally tend to be a little bit on the muggy side. So when we say 40s, anything below 50 for dew point temperatures is absolutely amazing. You can feel that outside. 83 expected for our high this afternoon. Here's what we're going to be focusing on in the forecast coming up. A dry and comfortable week in store. We are still having concern with burn bans and wildfire danger, and I'll have the latest on Hurricane Ian as it makes its impacts towards the Florida seaboard. I'll have that coming up.
It's some developing news this afternoon. Little Rock police are investigating what they were calling a homicide after fire officials discovered a body overnight. A man was found lying in the street on 65th. That is just east of South University. Police say the victim had been shot. Now he was pronounced dead at that scene. Police are trying to learn his identity. We will let you know any more details as soon as we receive them. And today, close to 400 Arkansas inmates were approved by the Arkansas Department of Corrections to get out early out of prison due to overcrowding. While the ADC approved the early releases, it's still up to the state parole board. Whenever the prison population exceeds 98% capacity for 30 days, the Board of Corrections can declare an emergency and speed up the parole eligibility date for certain offenders by 90 days. Well, Arkansas prisons just exceeded 100% capacity. The sheriff in Washington County says the caseload of local parole and probation officers is also out of control, and this early release will only make it worse.
I think they average probably 100 to 110 cases per parole officer. So add more to that, it's virtually impossible for them to lay eyes or hands on these folks on a weekly basis.
Now, if approved, the nearly 400 inmates up for early release could get out of prison by the end of this year. We'll have more on prison overcrowding tonight at 5 and 6. We are less than 50 days out from the November elections, and new polls are shedding some light on where the races stand right now. Now, a lot is riding on these polls, which haven't always been an accurate predictor in recent years. However, as THV 11's Sarah Horbakowitz explains, a lot of time and money goes into making sure that this poll data can be trusted.
We just almost treat politics these days like a sporting event. And so we kind of want to know who's ahead.
ULR political science professor Rebecca Glazier says election polls can show voters like Christina where their favorite candidates stand right now.
This election, I'm excited for the candidates running.
The numbers coming from a wide sample of likely voters.
A good poll will pick a sample of people that is the same proportion that the whole population has.
Pollster Terry Benham with Impact Management Group, a partner in recent Arkansas polls, says a lot of time and money goes into making sure those standings are reliable.
Reputable polling firms go out of their way to make sure that those questions aren't crafted in a way that's going to form a bias.
After surveying about 800 Arkansans with Talkin' Business earlier this month, their latest poll shows Sarah Huckabee Sanders leading Chris Jones, following our state's Republican trend.
Arkansas is a very red state. That's not going to change. But the purpose of the polling going on right now is to inform those decisions going into the election cycle.
And while Benham says the data can be a good guide, it's not a guarantee, something we saw in the 2016 presidential election.
I don't think those polls were off. This is kind of what the political environment looked like. What that doesn't factor in is turnout.
Glazier emphasizing that anything can happen over the next few months.
A poll that's taken today doesn't count for all the new people that are going to get registered.
Voters taking polls with a grain of salt, getting ready for Election Day.
I'm really excited to just make my vote count.
Reporting in Little Rock, Sarah Horbakowitz for Wake Up Central.
Professor Glazier also says some polls look at likely voters, which may consider a voter's history with elections before accepting their response. And looking ahead to the upcoming midterms, one big question is how redrawing congressional maps will affect battles for seats in the U.S. House of Representatives. Now, all over the country, redistricting is impacting races. That includes here in Arkansas as well. Parties in control of the state legislature have been redrawing the congressional map, showing how one party often keeps the upper hand. Now, the changing map may impact more than political strategy. Some are concerned it's actually suppressing votes.
That GOP plan was intended to affect a partisan advantage. However, in the process, it diminishes African Americans' ability to elect candidates of their choice in northern Florida.
Now, that is leaving voters to question and even challenge their new districts in court. As we continue now, you can register to vote as we head toward those midterms in November. Just go to vote here in Arkansas for the upcoming election. Now, here's the news. You got until October 11th, that is 2 weeks from today, to register to vote. Those midterms are coming up quick. Now, the Arkansas Department of Health is trying to get ahead of this flu season, as we all are, opening up clinics across the state in an effort to get more Arkansans to roll up their sleeves. First clinic took place Monday in Jefferson County, and there will be another in Pulaski County later today. The ADH says so far they haven't seen significant numbers of flu cases in the state, but he does have a hunch the numbers will be higher this year than they have the past 2 years.
Well, the last two flu seasons have been much milder. 2 years ago was really, really low. I mean, cases were at or below the baseline level due to all the measures that people were taking from COVID.
Now, according to the Department of Health, the flu is spread through coughing or sneezing and by touching contaminated surfaces. Hand washing can help prevent the spread, but doctors say the flu shot, it is the best protection against the virus. Well, demonstrations are growing worldwide and here in the U.S. as well for a woman killed in police custody in Iran. The 22-year-old woman was arrested for allegedly wearing her headscarf too loosely. So far, dozens of people have been killed in Iran during those protests. Natalie Brand has more details from the White House.
The death toll of demonstrators killed in protests in Iran is growing as unrest spreads over the death of 22-year-old Mahsa Amini, arrested for violating the country's strict dress code for women. She was tortured in the van after her arrest and then tortured at the police station for half an hour, Masha's cousin told CBS News. Amini was taken into custody 2 weeks ago, accused of wearing her hijab headscarf too loosely. Her cousin says the protesters want regime change in Iran in order to live freely. But the country is cracking down, arresting more than 1,200 people. President Ibrahim Raisi warns protesters will be dealt with, quote, decisively. The Biden administration is imposing sanctions on Iran's morality police and is taking steps to support internet freedom as the Iranian government imposes online shutdowns.
Iran must end its use of violence against women for exercising their fundamental freedoms. There must be accountability for Mahsa's death.
Demonstrations in support of Amini and the Iranian people are spreading internationally. Equality for Iran! And from coast to coast here in the U.S.
They are really hopeless and they have no help.
Faced with increasing criticism, Tehran is accusing the United States of using the unrest to try to destabilize its country. Natalie Brand, CBS News, the White House.
Not just the U.S., Canada is the latest country to announce new sanctions against Iran over its human rights positions and the handling of protests in their country. Well, NASA flew a spacecraft straight into the history books overnight, but did it work to actually alter the path of an asteroid? We'll have the deep space details coming up. Corrales?
Gorgeous day, and that's going to continue to be the trend for quite some time. We'll have a forecast for you guys, what to expect for the upcoming week, and the latest on Hurricane Ian as it makes its impacts on the mainland U.S. coming up.